What if I told you that silence can be louder than words? That in a world obsessed with noise, status updates, endless opinions, constant talking, the real power lies in mastering when not to speak? From the depths of Islamic teachings to the echoes of ancient philosophy, silence isn't just the absence of speech. It's a calculated tool, a strategy, even a weapon. This video will show you how silence, used correctly, can transform your relationships, your reputation, and even your connection to God. Stay with me. This might change the way you move in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back to the channel where we explore philosophy through the lens of Islamic wisdom. Today's topic, the hidden power of silence, and why some of the wisest people in history chose stillness over speech. We'll dive into Quranic insights, prophetic behavior, and what thinkers like Al-Ghazali, Ibn Ata'illah, and even some non-Muslim philosophers had to say about this underrated skill. Let's begin the Islamic foundation of silence. Let's start where everything begins for a believer, with the Qur'an and Sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." Bukhari and Muslim. Notice, this isn't just about politeness, it's about belief. Silence, then, is an act of iman, faith. Imam al-Ghazali, in his Ihya Ulum al-Din, devotes an entire section to the dangers of the tongue. He warns that most sins humans fall into, backbiting, lying, slander, stem from uncontrolled speech. So silence isn't weakness, it's control, discipline, awareness. And then there's Ibn Ata'illah, who writes in his Hikam, "Bury your existence in the earth of obscurity, for whatever sprouts without being buried will never bear fruit." Here silence becomes a kind of fertile soil, a place where the self can grow without being overexposed. Even in the Qur'an, Allah praises those who are the servants of the Most Merciful as people who walk upon the earth humbly, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace. Surah Al-Furqan 25:63. The response is calm, minimal, strategic. Silence isn't submission, it's serenity. The psychological power of silence. Why is silence so powerful in a psychological sense? First, mystery. The more you talk, the more predictable you become. The less you talk, the more people wonder what you're thinking. Psychologists call this the uncertainty advantage. It's why leaders and negotiators use pauses, not speeches, to create tension. Second, projection. People will project their own thoughts onto your silence. In relationships, this can work to your benefit. When you don't rush to explain yourself, others begin to fill in the gaps, often giving you more credit than you deserve. And third, emotional regulation. Silence is a delay, a buffer. It gives you a chance to respond instead of react. In Islam, the Prophet, peace be upon him, would remain silent when angry until his emotion passed. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Silence, then, is a form of intelligence, when silence is cowardice. But let's not romanticize silence too much. There's a kind of silence that is blameworthy, a silence that betrays truth, a silence that the Qur'an condemns. In Surah Al-Ma'idah 5:63, Allah questions the scholars of the children of Israel. Why do the rabbis and learned men not forbid them from speaking sinfully and devouring unlawful gain? Their silence in the face of wrongdoing was complicity. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The best jihad is to speak a word of truth before a tyrant ruler." Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is break the silence. So the wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and when to be still. Speech must be weighed. Silence must be intentional. Not every quiet person is wise, and not every speaker is foolish. Philosophers on silence. Interestingly, even non-Muslim thinkers deeply valued silence. Lao Tzu, founder of Taoism, said, "Silence is a source of great strength." Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher, made his students stay silent for 5 years before they were allowed to speak freely. Why? To discipline the soul. And Stoic philosophers like Epictetus taught that one should speak only when speech improves upon silence. Compare that with Islamic scholars, and the overlap is striking. Imam Malik, for instance, was once asked 48 questions. To 32 of them, he replied, "I don't know." That's not ignorance. That's humility. Silence in philosophy and Islam alike is tied to the ego. Those who silence the ego often speak the loudest through their actions. Practical applications, all right. So how do we actually use this? 1. In arguments, stay calm, speak less. Let the other person reveal themselves. As Imam Shafi'i said, silence is the best reply to a fool. 2. On social media, just because you can comment doesn't mean you should. Every word online is recorded, literally and spiritually. 3. In spiritual growth, use silence to reflect. Engage in dhikr, remembrance, rather than chatter. Many scholars preferred seclusion, not because they hated people, but because they knew the value of inner dialogue. 4. In power dynamics, if you're in a leadership position, silence makes people listen more attentively when you do speak. Be slow to speak, quick to listen. 5. In worship, salah, prayer, is filled with silent moments. These are not empty. They're full of divine presence. Even during tawaf around the Kaaba, the default is silence and dhikr. Silence isn't emptiness. It's potential. It's not the absence of power. It is power. Islam doesn't ask you to be mute. It asks you to be wise with your words, to treat your tongue like a sword, drawn only when necessary and never without purpose. Let's end with a quote from the Prophet, peace be upon him. A person may say a word without thinking, and because of it, he will fall into the hellfire farther than the distance between the east and the west. Bukhari. And in contrast, silence, done right, may elevate you without anyone even knowing. If you found this reflection beneficial, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing this message with others. Until next time, speak with purpose or stay silent with wisdom. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.